History, Class 10, Unit number 2, Nationalism in India. Very important questions. What were the factors that favor the rise of Indian nationalism? Write down these certain factors which made responsible for the growth of national movement in India. Point number 1. The British had brought about a political unification of the various kingdom, principalities, and territories in the Indian subcontinent. 2. A uniform system of administration was introduced over the British rural territories under the jurisdictions of the common British law. Modern technologies like railway, telegraphy, postal systems, roads, and motor transport had made the mobility of people possible. Economic integrations was brought about by the railways. Point number 4. There was interdependence, internet trade, leading to the creation of the national market, which facilitated an economic exploitation of India as a whole. Point number 5. The socio-religious reform movements of the 19th centuries evolved a national consciousness. It led to an intellectual and a cultural renaissance which created a national vision for the futures. The modern literatures of the Indian language induced patriotic reforms movement. Point number 7. The spirit of modern educations. A modern India intelligentsia has emerged. This intellectual provide the leadership for the radical nationalist activities. What were the major characteristics of Indian national movements, or what were the silent features of the Indian national movements? Point number 1. The movement was based on the principle of democracy, civil liberties, and secularism. The most distinguishing characteristics of the Indian nationalism was a democratic and secular ethos based on the egalitarian social order. Number 2. The movement popularized the democratic ideas and institutions. The nationalists always struggled for a representative form of government through elections and adult franchise. The movement stood for liberties and fundamental rights. It always fought the freedom of expression, particularly the freedom of press. The fundamental rights and freedom are now guaranteed under the constitutions. The movement stood for liberties and fundamental rights. It always fought the freedom of expression, particularly the freedom of press. The fundamental rights and freedoms are now guaranteed under the constitutions. Unit number 4. Indian national movement was always against communalism, above caste, creed, or race. It has a strong secularist foundation. Secularism is now a declared national goal. Number 5. The movement was always anti-imperialistic. It took stand on international issues. It was always outward-looking and never inward-looking. Question number 3. What were the landmarks of the Indian national movements? What were the landmarks of the Indian national movement 1885 to 1934? The landmarks of the Indian national movements were as follows. Roman number 4. Foundation of Indian National Congress. The concrete step of the movement was the foundation of Indian National Congress in 1885. The Congress provided democratic forum of nationalist-minded intellectuals and middle class for discussion and debate on social, economic, and administrative issues. Swadeshi Movement 1905. The partition of Bengal in 1905 by Lord Curzon arose a strong anti-British sentiment in many parts of India. The Swadeshi movement was launched as a strong protest movement by boycotting foreign goods and adoptions of Indian goods. Number 3. The non-violence movements against the Rollout Acts 1919. In 1919, Gandhiji launched a national-wide satyagraha against the notorious Rollout Acts of 1919 passed by the Imperial Legislative Council. The Act gives enormous power to the government to repress the political activities, detention of political prisoners for 2 years without trial. Point number 4. Khilafat and Non-Cooperation Movement 1921-22. Mahatma Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement in 1921 in support of the Khilafat movement. Various social groups participated in the movements. The movement came to an end after the Chauri Chaura incidents on 5th February 1922. Civil Disobedience Movement 1930 to 1934. On 6 April 1930, Mahatma Gandhi launched the Civil Disobedience Movement by disobeying the Salt Act by collecting salt from Dandi Sea Beach. Give an account of the Great Nupilan, Second Nupilan of 1939. By December 1939, paddy price rose up in Manipur as there was a bad harvest. However, the government of Manipur gave monopoly of milling the paddy to some Marwaris merchants of Imphal and also exporting rice to neighboring province of Assam. On 12 December 1939, the market women of the historic women market of Khairamban protest. They forced the political agents to stop the rice export. The market women surrounded the telegraph office where the assistant political agent was trying to contact the Maharaj Surasan Singh. Who was in Bengal at the time and to obtain permission from him. Several women who were peacefully gathered at the telegraph office were beaten up and many got bayonet wounds. These incidents aggravated the whole situation. Women flocked boycott the Khairamban Bazaar for 1 year. Though the export of rice was banned by Maharaj, the attitude of the colonial officials were hostile. To my dear students, this is the second unit of class 10 history, nationalism in India. So learn by heart these few questions and answers, and which is also very important.